evening and welcome to Q&A. Well, many people spend their lives considering big questions about the meaning of life and the existence of God. Well, tonight we've got less than an hour, but we do have a very good panel. One of Australia's leading Catholic intellectuals, Father Frank Brennan, renowned journalist and atheist, Christopher Hitchens, who's in Australia to deliver the opening address at the Festival of Dangerous Ideas, social commentator and founding editor of The Monthly, Sally Warhaft, and politics lecturer and former spokesman for the Islamic Council of Victoria, Waleed Ali, and Deputy Director of the Sydney Institute, biographer and commentator, Anne Henderson. Please welcome our panel. Okay. Now, remember that Q&A is live from 9:30 Eastern Time, so join the Twitter conversation and send your questions by SMS to 1975522 or to our website at abc.net.au/Q&A. Well, as we go to air tonight, there are reports that thousands may have died in the earthquakes and tsunamis that ravaged our region in the last few days. Well, these sorts of tragedies inevitably raise questions like our very first one, which comes from Edjar Menace.
Yes. It goes on even more beautifully to say that... no, it's not from me. It's not from me. It goes on to say that criticism of religion has plucked the flowers from the chain, not so that men and women may wear the chain without consolation, but so that they may break the chain and cull the living flower. It's from Karl Marx. It's the opening of his critique of Hegel's philosophy of right. It's the most misrepresented quotation probably of the 19th century. It's the one where he doesn't say religion is the opium of the people.
But he does.
It's the one that shows that atheists are not dogmatists.
But he does understand, essentially, in making that point, why religion still resonates today.
He understands why religion is ineradicable, why it's part of the human makeup and personality, and why it's the most interesting argument that we have, because it was our first attempt at philosophy, just as it was our first attempt at healthcare, cosmology, astronomy, and so on. It's the argument that never goes stale.
But I think one of the strengths of your book is that you do concede that religion is ineradicable. Given that reality, I mean, I come back to the point, why not drop the bagging and smearing, and let's say the solvent is respectful public discourse. We judge things by their fruits, and if there be arguments which are put which are misconceived, then we talk that out.
Okay, hang
on.
Father,
you're the soul of charity, but I mean, who's been bagging and smearing? And you've said that twice now. As if you're sitting there, our only protection against a wave of smearing and bashing. I thought that as long as we have a civil conversation, we don't have to keep on saying that that's what we're doing.
Okay, in this civil conversation, we have an audience. We've got a gentleman up there with his hand up, and I'm going to come to you.
This question's for Chris and for Waleed. Frank and Waleed. You said that we live in a pluralistic society, a duality society. What is your views on gay marriage, and why is it there seems to be such opposition from the Christian and Muslim societies against it?
Okay, we'll take a quick answer from Frank and Waleed on that.
I've just finished a national human rights inquiry. We've heard about this constantly around the country. I would approach the issue of gay marriage distinguishing two things. One, people of a religious disposition may have a view about what they call the sacramentality of marriage. I would see that as a separate question from the civil institution of marriage. Now, in terms of the civil institution of marriage, I think one of the welcome developments in Australia is we've got to the stage of saying that discrimination against people on the grounds of their sexuality should be wiped out completely, and that we're a better society for that being the case. In terms of the next step, whether or not in civil law there should be a recognition of the bond between two men or two women as being the same as marriage as it's presently understood, the real issue, I think, is whether or not that decision is best made by our elected politicians or whether it's made by unelected judges. And I think at the moment in Australia the view has been that that should be a decision of our elected politicians. My own view is, moving around the country, I think that younger Australians, they don't see it as a problem. It's not an issue. I think for a lot of older Australians, it's still an issue, and guess what? A lot of them happen to be married. So in terms of a free and democratic society, for those who are civilly married, then we've got to bring them with us as we look at any change on that issue.
All right, before I go to anyone else on that, you're watching Q&A. We actually have a video question that's going to I think, continue this discussion. We're watching Q&A. Remember, you can send your web or video questions to our website. The address is Henderson.
I would say exactly the same. It's, again, what I said before. Where there is no meaning, people find God. And that's their comfort. There's even supposed to be a God gene, I think someone thought of. And I don't understand it totally, and some part of me does. So, yeah, I would say I agree with Frank. It's fear and comfort.
Wally Daly.
Well, let's not ignore it's a perfectly rational decision to make at that point. I mean, you're on your deathbed, there's absolutely no point not believing in God at that point.
Because you might be right.
You may as well jump on a team that, if it's wrong, who cares?
I would say God knows. I mean, unless you're from a team that, dies repeatedly.
When Voltaire was dying, a priest came and said, "You should renounce the devil," and he said, "This is no time to be making enemies." But it's a religious falsification that people like myself scream for a priest. At the end, David Hume very famously didn't and was witnessed by James Boswell not doing so. Most of us go to our ends with dignity. If we don't, and if it is the wish for fear or comfort, then both of these things are equally delusory, as religion is itself.
And I think what we've... Thank you. We've proven, I think, tonight that this kind of discussion is worth having, but that is all we have time for. I'm sorry to those people who still got their hands up. Please thank our panellists, Frank Brennan, Christopher Hitchens, Sally Warharth, Wally Daly and Anne Henderson. All right. Next week, another iconoclastic panel, including the feminist author with dangerous ideas, Germaine Greer, Gruen transfer Adman Todd Sampson, the Labor Party's Belinda Neal, and the Liberal Party backbench rebel Corey Bernardi. That's all we have at the moment. We'll have one more by then. So join us next Thursday for another great Q&A. Good night.